So welcome back everyone. So resuming back to our event, everyone knows about Titanic's downfall or have heard about the Taj Mahal Hotel Palace. But very few know the real hero of Titanic or the idea that led to the making of Taj Mahal Hotel. So let us know more about it from our next video.
Hello everyone, I am Rija. Today I am going to tell you a story behind the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel. So let's get started. Mr. J.R.D. Tata, a leading Indian industrialist in the 19th century, was prevented for entering the Watson Hotel in Bombay on account of his being an Indian. The Watson Hotel had a big board outside that said dogs and Indians not allowed. Enraged, the legend states, JRD decided to set up a much better and grander hotel where Indians would be welcomed, and thus, the Taj Mahal Hotel was built. There are some claims that there was a board put that stated British and cats not allowed. But, there are also claims of it being nothing more than just a rumor. J.R.D. Tata and his group is one of the trusted companies in India and he respects the diverse culture the one comes from. He did not wanted to give someone the same treatment that he was given just because of his cultural background and hence rest is history. I hope you guys enjoyed the story. Bye.
The Unsinkable Molly Brown Story of Titanic Survivor, Leadership, Entrepreneurship, and Equal Treatment for All. From Southampton, England to New York, America, the maiden voyage of the Titanic was to be one for the ages. We all remember Titanic today, but all for the wrong reasons. Almost 2,000 people died that night in 1912. Among the few survivors who managed to get themselves out of the Titanic was Molly Brown. She is also known as the Unsinkable Molly Brown. She earned this name after she gained control over the rescue boats and forced the captain to turn the boat around and rescue more people. She was born poor and married for love, unlike in those times where people married each other for power, money, or other political gains. Fortune struck when her husband found a gold mine and claimed it for himself and his wife. Their lifestyle took a 360 turn as she went from a poor housewife to a wealthy socialite. Although she was invited to the social parties, she always felt like an outsider. During the fall of the Titanic, she was placed in the lifeboat which carried all rich socialites. She was placed among them. When she saw that the boats had enough space for more people to get on board, she immediately brought this to captain's notice. Seeing the social discrimination happening, even while people were struggling to save their lives, did not sit well with her and with all her might. Her urgings were met with opposition from Quartermaster Robert Hichens, the crewman in charge of Lifeboat 6. Hichens was fearful that if they went back, the lifeboat would either be pulled down due to suction or the people in the water would swamp the boat in an effort to get in. After several attempts to urge Hichens to turn back, Brown threatened to throw the crewman overboard. Brown's efforts sealed her place in history regardless. Upon being rescued by the ship RMS Carpathia, Brown proceeded to organize a survivors committee with other 5 class survivors. The committee worked to secure basic necessities for the second and third class survivors and even provided informal counseling.
Boom. Those were some interesting videos. I really hope you all found it informative. So on this note, the next speaker we have for the day is Miss Leena Dadlani. Miss Leena Dadlani has a bachelor's degree in commerce and postgraduate diploma in business management. Talking about her experience, she is highly proficient in application production support, incident management, ticket volumes management, change management, creating of MIS metrics for junior management reviews. Before joining Barclays Bank PLC, she has worked for JP Morgan from January 2007 to November 2018. She was also a part of First Source Solutions as a part of ICICI Bank in Mumbai as a customer support representative. She trains technology employees on all facets of diversity and inclusion, women leadership, corporate stakeholders, and executive communications. Talking about her achievements, she has earned ITIL, and Certified Scrum Master certification. She is an adjunct professor of management teaching the below subjects for the MMS and PGDM program in London School of Economics. University of Wolverhampton. Both of these institutes deliver classes and degrees via Poddar International School, Juhu. Mumbai Institute of Management, Bandra. Guru Nanak Institute of Management Studies, Matunga, to name a few. We are privileged to have you here with us today, ma'am. Over to you now.
Well, thank you for a wonderful and a warm welcome, and that was a lovely introduction about me. Thank you, and thank you for sharing those videos as well. It was wonderful to know about Molly Brown as well. Yes, today we are talking about history, and today we're going to connect history and connect with our modern management and understand how, I mean, do those values still hold the importance today in our modern world and in our modern way of management. So I'm going to talk about Rome and one particular leader named Julius Caesar. And that's how we're going to understand the history about it, about Rome, then about Julius Caesar, and we're going to connect back to our modern management, and we'll understand how leadership qualities are still holding values. Talking about Roman history, it's a very ancient history, and it was founded by Romulus with his brother. It's a plateau which is placed in between the seven hills. Earlier, Rome was known as a renegade province. What does that mean? Renegade province means when people from the other provinces or the other part of country were committing any crime, for example, a rapist, murderer, or thieves, were all sent to this province, like you have a Kalapani here in India, the way you name it. It's exactly the similar way renegade province works. So Rome was a renegade province then, and coming back more to that, Roman history was divided into three parts. So the first one was about having a magistrate rule that ruled Rome. Second was a democracy that we've seen a democracy, doing in Rome. Third one was where we had an emperor who was ruling Rome. So basically, this is how the history was divided. And Julius Caesar played a very important role in Rome as well. He was the first emperor of Rome. Though Rome had seen a lot of kings, but he was the first emperor of Rome. Julius Caesar was born to a Julia family, and his ancestors claimed to be the descendant of goddess Venus. If we understand Julius Caesar's earlier years, or I would say when he was growing, at that point it was very uneventful. So nothing gave us a sign, or there was no traces that this man would become an emperor of Rome one day. There were no signs, and nothing was mentioned anywhere. But whenever he was being asked by people around him that what would you want to become when you grow up, he would always say that I want to become a big man. And that's something that was always playing on his mind, and that's something he wanted to achieve. At the age of 16, when his father passed away, and there was a civil war that struck between his uncle Marius and Sulla. So that when the war was going on, in the middle of the war, he got married to one of his uncle's friend's daughter called Cornelia, and they had one child after that marriage named Julia. When the war was over, Sulla won the war, and when he came into and he became the kind of a king in Rome, and he started ruling, he had ordered Julius Caesar to divorce Cornelia and to leave Rome. But Julius Caesar had refused to divorce, and he went hiding places because Sulla was behind his life to kill him. A lot of conviction was done by his family to save Caesar's life. So what he did was he gave up the idea of killing. Sulla gave up the idea of killing Caesar. but he also gave an order saying that Caesar will never inherit any property in from Rome. Post that, Julius Caesar left Rome. He went to a military and he started training himself into military. He also had been a proud, achieving a civil crown there. He was very good with military, learning things there. And post that, Sulla passed away, and there was no king who was ruling Rome. This gave a chance for Caesar to come back, and because of his oratory skills, he came back to Rome and he started settling in Rome. He also went to other country to learn about philosophy and learn oratory skills. While coming back from the country, when he was going back to Rome, he was kidnapped by Somali pirates. So what happened was, then the Somali pirates kidnapped, they had asked for 50 grams gold and 50 grams silver for releasing Caesar from their hold. Uh, Hearing this, Caesar was very furious and he slapped one of the pirates. And he said that, please ask for 500 grams of gold and 500 grams of silver. The future emperor can't be so cheap. And that's the statement he made. And he also said that once I become the emperor, I will make sure that I will kill each one of you because you have kidnapped me. And trust me, that statement came to be true, because after 15 years he became the emperor there, and he also killed these pirates who had actually kidnapped him. When he came back to Rome, and he started became a part of the Roman Senate with the help of his with help of Pompey and one of the other person who was very rich and very influential in Roman Senate was Marcus. He started rising in the political power. Uh, in that era, he also lost his first wife, Cornelia. And when he started rising in that power, a few years later, he also got married to Pompilia, who was a granddaughter of Sulla and also a relative to Pompey. Pompey and Caesar, and also if you see Marcus, were the three powerful men. So because of their influence, Caesar also became a governor of Spain, and he started being in that magistrate power as well. And he continued to rule there because of his influential and because of the oratory skills that he had. Moving on to that, to make the bond so stronger, Caesar played a master stroke. What he did was, when he went back to Rome again, he married his daughter to Pompey, and they came up with a treaty called as a Triumph-Whiteley Treaty. Now, looking at this treaty, the Roman Senate got worried because they said that the three powerful men are coming together, so it will be a big effect on the Roman Empire as well. But they continued well, and the bond went very well, and they were working very well. So what happened was, as he moved out of Spain as a governor, he then became a governor for a Gaul Empire, which is in the northern eastern of Europe, and he had won a lot of civil wars, and he had acquired other provinces as well. Looking at that, Pompey was resenting Caesar and was trying to kind of have a kind of I would say, was not happy with what Caesar was doing. So what happened was, Caesar then was continuing to build his own army, which was illegal there, and they never and Pompey was not happy about this. So as he was still continuing as a governor there. Pompey had lost his wife, who was a daughter of Caesar, and he went and joined the opponents of Caesar, who were the enemies of Caesar, and they were planning to kill Caesar so that they can acquire the emperorship there. But when he came to know, when Caesar came to know from from the people from the Roman Senate who were the sympathizer with Caesar, he started to understand that so he will be the one who can kill me. So he went to a Rubicon. He was trying to go and win a war against Pompey, and to kill Pompey as well because he became his enemy. So he traveled with his army there, and at the Rubicon River, they were supposed to cross the river, and next day they would have strike the war. So at the river, he was thinking that should he go himself alone and fight the war, or should he take the army with himself? So that's the dilemma that was going in his head. So what happened was in the morning he decided that he will take the army with him. And when they crossed the Rubicon River, when they reached the other side, he told his armed forces to burn the boats, and so nobody can go back. This is where the concept of burning the boats also came here. He again was trying to defeat Pompey, and he followed him from Italy to Greece and to Egypt, and finally Pompey was dead in Egypt. When he reached Egypt, what happened that he met a very beautiful lady there, and her name is Cleopatra. Now, Cleopatra was very beautiful, so he was kind of being with her and helped her to fight the enemies of Egypt, and they started coming close to each other. Then at a later stage, they were into a relationship, and out of that relationship, there was a son, and his name was Caesarion. So and they never got married. So that's the reason if you see in the modern science, if you have a childbirth which is not normal, it's called as a cesarean section or a C-section, as we all know about this. So that's where the concept came in, because the child was out of marriage. Looking at this, Cleopatra and Caesar were there, and they were fighting their enemies who were against Caesar and also against Egypt. Winning those civil wars, it made Caesar strong, and also he declared himself as a dictator for a lifetime. And this actually got a very volatility in the Roman Senate. And they conspired against him, and they wanted Caesar to be killed completely, because they didn't want a king who can be a dictator for a lifetime. And that's how the entire Senate conspired against him, and he was stabbed to death, and he was killed by the Senate there. Now, after when he was killed, he had a successor whose name was Octavia, and currently known as, also we know him by a name as Augustus. And he was the one who brought sanity in Rome, brought peace in Rome. And it's said that Octavia was the son of Pompey and the daughter of Caesar's daughter of Caesar, and he was the one who had taken over the empire from there. And he brought in a lot of peace, and things started working okay. So this is what the Caesar's life is, and this is how he had led. These were the qualities which made him the strong emperor as well. And if we look at those qualities, what he possessed in today's world would be, first, he had the concept of thinking big. So if you must have listened to me that in the initial, when I said that we never found any traces about or any signs about he becoming a big man, or he had some kind of connections with any kings, but he had the thought process of becoming a big man, and that's where it all started. Second was that he was a brilliant strategist. So whenever he wanted to win somewhere, or have a victory, or when he was also into a Gaul, he was a governor there. He had built his own army, and he had actually he was the one person who had actually gone and killed the Gallic troop, or the tribe, I would say, from the front and not from the back. So he was a very brilliant strategist there. Third, he was a decision maker. So once he's made that decision, he would put 200% into it. And that's where made him, that's the one quality made him also, if we understand that he wanted to cross the Rubicon River and he wanted to understand what does he do. I mean, should he, go with the entire army that he has, or should he go alone and fight the war? And the last thing was he was a brilliant communicator, and he was very influential. Because of his communication, people were mesmerized with his conversation. And it's said that we've got three people in our history who were the best orators and also the best influencers. One was the Adolf Hitler, the second was the Cyrus the Great, and the third was Julius Caesar. So these qualities, if we look at into leadership, they still hold the same value, they still hold that same importance in today's world as well. And if I have to really compare this to one of the leader that we have in today's world, who's got exactly the same qualities what Julius Caesar had, and it's Jeff Bezos from Amazon, as we all know. And if you look at him, he always thinks big. I mean, we all know that he started the Amazon from his father's garage, and he had taken money from his father to start this Amazon as a business. Second, he's a brilliant communicator. I mean, when he was going through a divorce, and we must have all seen his divorce letter on the social media, and what a way to write and get separated from your spouse. And it was so respectful, and it was so very well written for a woman. Third was that he's a brilliant strategist, because if you understand, the Amazon was one company, or is one company, who bought data analytics tool and used data analytics tools for its e-commerce business. And the fourth thing is that he's a good decision maker as well. So this is what I had to, Julius Caesar, where I had to talk about and connect with the modern world, because I feel that they are the exact same people. These qualities that we had in our history holds the same value as of today as well. Thank you.
Okay, simply brilliant. I must say that you are a very fascinating storyteller. So,
Thank you.
First and foremost, I would like to thank you for your gracious presence. Secondly, I think for me also, it has come as news that C-section actually evolved out of the basic story of the child getting born out of the wedlock, the way we say it, right? So that was also, news to me. So all of us, I think we need to study about world history a little more to be able to become a better administrator and a better manager. That's what has come out very clearly. So I think the qualities that you have been able to come up with, qualities of leadership, qualities of communication, skills, and the abilities to be able to put together everything in such a way that people begin to believe in it, they trust the leader, and take it forward. Right. So I think we are very happy that you have been able to bring out all these essential qualities as required by the future managers. So in the audience, we have a collection of CHROs from different companies. We also have senior managers. We have senior faculty members, and also a large group of students. So I think on their behalf, as well as on behalf of Aditya Institute of Management Studies and Research, I would like to take this opportunity to kind of give this to you as a token of appreciation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so we will definitely be making this available to you at your doorstep. That is going to be our responsibility. But
thank you for the great honor, and I'm really happy for this.
Right. So thank you very much. So I think what we can do is we can ask Chinmay. Chinmay, please take over so that we can proceed to the next segment.